Peace and blessings, family. I'm your brother in the struggle, Ali. And today we're going to decipher and decipher the so-called America's Civil War. On April the 12th, 1861, the then President Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, declared war on the Southern or so-called Confederate States. Now, in school, they taught us a whole bunch of mumble jumble, a whole bunch of nonsense. America's history books is just that, his story, or the victor's story. They never get our story. They never get her story or the real story. But we're just going to look at it from the perspective of his story or history. I mean, now, and I don't want you to confuse my position. I, by no shape, form, nor fashion, am a champion for the southern states nor the northern states. I'm not a champion for the Confederate flag nor the American flag. As a lamb or a sheep or a chicken would take the position, you know, if the wolves are trying to kill me and the foxes are trying to kill me, and they're both dogs, they're both in the canine family, I would be a fool to label myself a Democrat or a Republican. I don't mean no disrespect to those that consider themselves Republicans, nor Democrats, nor Independents or Dixiecrats or whatever nomenclature you want to use or scientific term you want to choose. I'm speaking of a black man trying to survive here on the planet Earth. Nor am I spooky or foolish enough to ignore all of the mythology about borders and languages and religions and constitutions and all other bull crap the devil put up there. That's why I love the Most Elijah Muhammad so much. That's why I bang y'all in the head with the messenger's message in this age of mess so much, because the Lamb, now I mean, he's always on point. Whether you agree or disagree, to me, he's always on point. And he simplifies it. Now I mean, he basically teaches us that, you know, it's not just an American thing. It's not socialist or communist or capitalist. You're really dealing with imperialism. You're really dealing with greed, but they'll make you think American greed and ignore that old queen over there that is greedier than a mug, that enslaved way more people. Keep in mind, they enslaved the white people in America and the black people and the Native American, and they took over Canada, and they took over Jamaica, and I mean, you'd be surprised how foolish we are in our asinine, illogical, uneducated, unresearched, knee-jerk reactions to these actionaries. And that's one of the things I agree with Comrade George Jackson. Now, I mean, our people are reactionaries instead of action. They turn on the news. It's like a cyclops, a one-eyed monster. Now, I mean, they just see tunnel vision. Oh, CNN said this. Fox News said this. Hate their nerves. I mean, Channel 3 is a liberal channel. I like them. They do good. It's all crap. And the faster our people wake up to that, the quicker we'll realize why we ain't talking about independence. Why we ain't talking about putting up our news stations. Why we not talking about signing our Declaration of Independence, putting up our flag. Why we not talking about our constitutions, our courts, our Supreme. Why can't we just say, oh, my homie so-and-so, you're the mayor of the hood. So-and-so is our governor in Pennsylvania. Oh, but we don't recognize none of that. That's what sovereign people think like. That's how reality activates people. That's how the early founding fathers and so-called founding mothers seceded from, you know, the ruling powers, the 1% as we call it now, but as Masfar Muhammad called it, the 10%, the rich, the slave makers of the poor. But back to the point. Abraham Lincoln, they basically got it like this, you know. Why did Abraham Lincoln declare war on the South? And they give you two lies. So you could choose between the two lies the same way you choose between, I'm for the death penalty, I'm against the death penalty. Oh, you hear with the Supreme Court? You hear about Texas, Roe versus Wade, they're trying to stop abortion. So you're for abortion or you're against abortion? Anybody that take a position like that in this universe, I ain't gonna say anybody, let me give you facts. Anything in creation that takes that position according to universal laws is blind, deaf, and dumb and will die. You will cease to exist in this universe. If you're a fish, if you're a tree, a blade of grass, an atom, a moon, a sun, a bird, a duck, or a dolphin. If you take any pro or anti position in the universal order of things, you die. You cease to exist because you annihilate reality. So our ancestors in ancient Kemet, or so-called Egypt, they called it Ma'at, balance. That's what we're supposed to strive for. We call it in Nation of Islam, peace, truth, freedom, justice, and equality. The 5-pointed star. Now, the messenger teaches us that Dr. Yaqub Shabazz taught his people through literature how to divide the original people against themselves. Now, I mean, go in amongst them, you know our people, you know you're on social media, you know how this thing go, Twitter, Instagram, they love gossip. Oh, did you hear about that? Oh, you hear that girl did what? You hear about her brother son? Oh, you hear about you know he did this? You know she did? And the gossip mill gets to flowing, and we're fighting, arguing, and killing each other. I remember just a mere, like 5 years ago, I used to see all these beautiful brothers and sisters teaching all this different perspectives on consciousness. Now it's like I'm trying to listen to a good class. Everybody gang war. Everybody trying to kill each other, slandering each other, calling each other out their names. The devil loves it. The North loves it. We have to get out of that mentality by all means. Now, I mean, by every practical means, if you will. Now, I mean, so the North, basically, they position themselves by saying that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he wanted to help them. And the other argument is, no, Abraham Lincoln really freed the slaves because he didn't want the southern states to secede from the Union. And they give you those two positions. And they say, okay, that's the two. But it's always a whole bunch of positions. It's always his side, their side, and the real side. You know what I mean? But any coin you toss, it'll have the front side, the back side, the tail, the head, but it's always a side. There's another side, a third side that they don't want you to think about. You know what I mean? And the reality of the matter is this. Abraham Lincoln, he legally did not have to go to war against the southern states seceding against the Union, nor did he have to go to war to free the slaves, all right? His so-called Emancipation Proclamation in 1865, he could have just signed that anytime he wanted to, actually. He's the president of the United States, executive order. You know, you've seen crazy behind President Trump do it. You know what I mean? You see President Biden too scared to do it. You know what I mean? So that's politics, that's economics. That's classism, racism, and sexism being made manifest. This is how the rich people rule all of us poor black people and poor white people in the United States of America and around the world. This is how they get us, divide and conquer. They make us think that it's about racism and prejudice when it's really about institutionalized racism. They make us think about the haves and the have-nots when it's really about fiat money and them just printing up money. They could make the economy weak or strong, whatever they want to do, because they control it. They make the rules. If I say $10 is $10, and then I sign an executive order say, oh yeah, by the way, $10 is no longer $10. If they say, okay, the British pound is the dollar bill, and then some gangsters come in and change that, be like, nah, we threw the government, we changing that. The British pound is no longer money in America. You're going to have the money that we make. This is the dollar bill now. And if people get rid of the British pound, they burn that crap. That's in museums now. I mean, and everybody using American dollar. Then they say, okay, you know, Nixon come and be like, all right, well, we're going to take the the money off the gold and silver standard and just make it a promissory note. You know what I mean? This note is legal tender for all debts, and now the people using that money. Then they say, okay, well, we don't really want to give these poor people no money. All right, we're going to print up some food stamps. And they print up a white piece of paper and stamp, this is $1, this is $5, this is $10. And we get the food stamps, and we could go to the store and be like, Massa said that this house is a $10 bill, and we'll get some food for it. Because the man said, we agree that that piece of paper that they printed up and called a $10 food stamp can get you whatever the $10 bill get. But in the future, they can be like, oh, ain't no more paper money. We're using digital money. And we control the economy. We're going to have Bitcoin. I mean, it's comical how blind, deaf, and dumb we still are after the life-giving teachers in Al-Balaj Muhammad. It hurts me to my heart, actually. You know what I mean? But Abraham Lincoln, looking at it from a practical standpoint, just stepping back and looking at both sides, looking at the big picture, if you will, he really was wrong, huh? The North was really wrong for declaring war on their Southern brothers and sisters. I don't say that as a lover of the white people down south. My mothers and my grandmother and my great-grandmother came from down south. You know what I mean? We from Macon, Georgia. We moved up Philly. My mother moved up Philadelphia when she was a little girl. You know what I mean? So I was born in North Philly. But I know that my origin ain't no darn United States of America. You know what I mean? I know I came from some part of Mother Africa, but I'm not so spooky and divided in my thinking like, oh, I'm African, so therefore I reject Asia. Duh. Africa was not a continent. The mother continent did not exist 200 years ago. Do the math. The mother continent did not exist. Africa was not a continent in the 1700s. They blew up the Suez Canal. Europeans, white folks, they made Africa a continent. Huh? They made Africa. Look at Egypt, Kemet, ancient Kemet. Look at Israel's position. Look at Mount Sinai. Look at Asia Minor. Look at Becca or Mecca across the Red Sea, where the Egyptians went across the Red Sea into the Promised Land, or Mecca's right there. Jeddah, where Dr. Yaqub was born at, is right there. I don't believe those slaves actually was, in bondage building no pyramids in ancient Kemet like the so-called white Jews are saying. Not that I'm anti-Semite, I mean, because I know black people are the real Jews. You know what I mean? So we just got so many bull crap and tricks out there. It's like you can't even talk about anything without it being some lies. Now, I don't care if it's the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Septuagint, Afrocentricity, whatever. It's all got mixed up with all this technology. It's tricks bonded with facts. And it's hard to shift through all that crap, and it's really a waste of time. It's just too much. So what you gotta do is just let the truth resurrect itself. Now, I mean, stick with your consciousness. Stick with your ancestors. Stick with what we call our African ancestors. Now, I mean, stick with our people, whether they from Ghana, Egypt, Morocco, the Tanzania, South Africa, Kush, Ethiopia, Nubia, the Sudan. I don't care what part. I love it all. All of it is my homies, my brothers and sisters, my ancestors, my elders. I claim all that. But I'm not going to let these devils trick me into ignoring the fact that the original black people also colonized and ruled India, China, Arabia, the islands of the north, south, west, and east, all the way to Australia. I mean, New Zealand, all that's our people. We got all that's home. I mean, all that's home. All Africa is not a continent. Africa is the universe, huh? Africa, the sun is African. The moon is African. The stars are African. The atoms are African. The animals are African. Everything has an African origin. We didn't always call it Africa. I mean, that little piece right there is a part of the big piece of the puzzle, the global piece. The Asiatic world, Asia means world. Atik or Ati means tribe or citizen. We're world citizens. We didn't have borders. We didn't separate the dark-skinned black people from the brown-skinned black people, from the yellow-skinned black, from the red-skinned. We're all black people. We produce albinos. We produce white people too. They all come from some black mama somewhere. All black mamas have an origin in some black daddy somewhere. Understand mathematics, understand atomics, understand the mind, understand how the original man self-created himself in the womb of space. So we don't separate the principles of the male and the female. That's a Eurocentric linear way of thinking. We think circular, people, 360 degrees. The earth is round, the sun is round, your blood cells are round, your skin cells are round, the sperm, the egg, the moon, the atoms, everything in the universe is a cipher. 360 degrees, not something. Everything in this universe is 360 degrees. Everything, I don't care what it is. 300. You take a mountain, break it down to the tiny little piece of dust, you'll see that the mountain is 360 degrees. Everything in this universe. You take a globe of take a tiny molecule of water out the atmosphere, which is 6 miles high. That water molecule is 360 degrees. It's a cipher. So when we say decipher, in a cipher, on the cipher, as the cipher, as the Bible says, the earth is round. You see what I'm saying? So everything operates at 360 degrees. We call it karma, Ife, I Ching, yin yang. What goes around comes around, you know, hood justice, whatever you want to call it. It all operates at 360 degrees. Same thing with this slavery crap in the United States. Our prisoners of war, that's really what they really was, because they was conscious. Now, I mean, they didn't, you know, a lion is not a pet until you enslave it mentally. You can't put a lion in slavery. You can't put a lion in a cage. You can't put a bird in a cage. You can't put a fish in a tank and say it's a pet. It still knows itself. You got to domesticate that creature. You can't change its nature. You got to alter its characteristics. You got to weaken the future generations to make that fish think it's a pet, to make that cat want to stay in that house. That cat will wait for you to open a can of so-called cat food before it go hunt and catch some food for itself and do for itself. But by nature, it knows how to hunt. By nature, that dog would be like, the food is you. I eat your bones. But you got him eating Alpo. And he think that, you know, he's a good old boy. You could just pat him on his head, yeah, like a little puppy, lick you in your face. You'll lick him right back in his face. The lion in the zoo will let you come in there and wipe his mane. But you ain't going to Africa and wipe that lion's mane. You'd consider that lion a wild lion because he's a natural lion. He's a conscious lion. He's a woke lion. That's the lion that the white folks going to tell you, don't mess with those lions. Don't mess with those rhinoceros. Don't mess with those snakes. Those are the ones that's real. Know what I mean? Now, these domesticated ones, now I mean, these little monkeys you see with Michael Jackson and all that, these little so-called Negroes, these so-called African Americans, spiritual cream puffs. You can do whatever you want with them. You can say anything you want. They easy to lead in the wrong direction, but hard to lead in the right direction. Because they're what Master Fard Muhammad calls the 85%. Now, I mean, they're the mentally dead. So Abraham Lincoln, on looking at it from their system, now I mean, and you know, spoils always go to the conquerors. Surah 8 of the Holy Quran, you know, the spoils of war, you know, so they allocated this thing up. And really, those so-called 13 colonies had their own little constitutions, and I mean, you know, their own ratifications, their court ordinances and codes and all that kind of stuff. And when they agreed to come together, part of that contract was that they could secede from the Union anytime they wanted to. That's what the law was. Now, there's man-made laws and there's universal laws. We're talking about man-made laws. Man-made laws is unique because when you look at laws and you're looking at them with linear thinking, it don't make sense. But when you look at it from a realistic perspective, from a circular reasoning, it's not that you agree with it, it's just that you could at least understand how that operates. Now, I mean, like say this is the year 2022. This is December 28th, 2022. Imagine Peter growing in wealth and political influence, and they take over the world. And they change the law, and they say it's illegal to eat animals on earth. They free the animals. Now, 1,000 years from now, 300 years from now, people is slandering people who are descendants of pet owners. Not comparing slaves to animals. I compare slaves to gods and goddesses. You know I do. Salam Allah all day with me. But I'm just using this as a analogy, raising a hypothesis so you can just analyze it, deputize and scrutinize it for yourself. Imagine the people in the future looking at people in this day and time, be like, oh, y'all was evil, y'all put the fish in tanks and y'all had dogs walking around on leashes, they were free animals, they had brains like we got brains, they got eyes like we got eyes. You know, if a woman want to have sex with a dog, that's her right, that's none of your business. Hey, that's the world we live in. Know what I mean? Now, I wouldn't get into the politics of that. I'm just amazed at Yakub's teaching of divide and conquer, and how you could come in as the peacemaker and you rule both sides of that argument. That's how they get us. I mean, so here it is, Abraham Lincoln has a disagreement with the people down the South. Now the people down South like, yo, we got taxation without representation. Y'all got us paying taxes on slaves, but y'all saying y'all want us to get rid of our slaves. We need somebody to pick this cotton. Now, not that I agree with no hillbilly racist white folks, nor do I agree with no intellectual anything, but I'm saying I'm just looking at it realistically from both sides of the argument. All right, the South is saying they want to secede from the Union. Abraham Lincoln don't want two presidents, as the Messenger says in 1973 in the Fall of America. He said, we just lucky to get freed in all that technology and confusion and political intrigue, because Abraham Lincoln didn't want to have a president down South and he's the president up North, and he definitely didn't want to have 13 different presidents down South voting and controlling the economy, and he's just the president of the Northern free states. So his thing is, man, we gonna kick some, you know what I mean, we strap up. I mean, and they was doing drive-bys. Now, I mean, you know, the real gangsters, you know what I mean? These little young boys, they do that little shooter. Man, you know, everybody in this country, this a gangster country. This a gangster world. Gangsters rule the world. Crime pays in America. So what did they do? They strapped up them cannons and they went down there, and I mean, and they start doing what they do. I mean, just like they did the Native Americans, they start killing them. Now I mean, they were kicking at doors, no search warrants, eat that food. Now I mean, take their weapons and boots and ride their horses off and all that. So the people felt as though an injustice was done to them down South by the North, big government. I understand. Is it true? Absolutely. Because the real issue is this: if they were seceding from the Union, Abraham Lincoln, the North and the South supposed to took that issue before their so-called other branch of government, the judicial branch. They supposed to went before the Supreme Court and had the issue resolved. Now, there's some of the southern states, if you got 13 states rising up trying to overthrow the government, you're having a coup or something like that, the federal government got the right to quell that coup. They can't declare war on them legally according to that system, but they had a right to protect their borders. But what Abraham Lincoln did, he did not go to court on the issue. He strapped up and sent his homies down there, and they kicked behinds and took names. And when they was gunning everything down, they, like smart gangsters, they was telling the enemy of that enemy, listen, we'll break y'all off if y'all help us. So blacks are like, yo, give me some guns. I mean, I shoot the Southerns, I shoot the Northerns, the Westerns, the Easterns, whatever. So you have brothers that joined in the war, and you know, our people run around, oh yeah, blacks fought the Civil War and this. It wasn't like the school teacher. That's not why they was doing that for real. It's the same thing today. Now, I mean, you know, majority of them black people in the Army, Navy, Air Force, they're not really there for no patriotic, God bless America. They're there because they like, damn, military paid better. I mean, you get benefits in the military. Uncle Sam looks out for his own. Them VA home loans and, I mean, them VA hospitals and all that. You're like, yo, what ain't my options here? I'd rather join the Marine Corps than, you know, work at the gas station or pick up the trash or work at the corner store or do some roofing or carpentry work. I mean, so people make choices in life. That's really ain't none of my business, your business, whatever. You know what I mean? We all in the struggle to survive in this thing. You got to do what you got to do in this country. So the message teacher is judging us for a law. If you must judge, let him judge himself. So I don't judge our sisters that's stripping. I don't judge the hustlers on the corner. Now, I mean, not that I agree with it. It's like, this is America. They got to eat. I ain't got no money to put no food on that table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mind my business. I'll give them advice. I try to get them to take it to the next level. Like, okay, now you got this money, young. You know what I mean? Go and get this real estate gang. Get out the gang. You don't want to go to jail. You don't want to get killed. You don't want, you know what I mean? It's like, you got to use reality. So when it came to this so-called civil war, it was nothing civil about it, nor was it cut and dry like everything in black and white. That's part of the technology of the federal government, the North. The reality is, Democrats got some stuff right. Republicans got some stuff right. I take the position as an independent. In my lifetime, I would say that usually the Democrats have most of the issues that I care about that could benefit me and my family, you know what I mean? But there's no doubt in my mind, I hear them Republicans say certain things that I'm like, oh, I agree with that position on there, you know what I mean? But I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican, you know what I mean? It's like, I would say probably like 80% of my life I didn't vote, really. I don't believe that voting is salvation, nor am I naive enough to believe that we shouldn't vote. The message told us if you cast your vote, you know, cast it with wisdom. Meaning that, you know what I mean, you gotta understand how this thing operates. It's a lot of money in that stuff. It's a lot of benefits in that stuff. That's how the hood get hurt and help. Now, I mean, so when you in a struggle for freedom, justice, and equality, you know, you got to do what you got to do when you on the front lines. Now, I mean, if the enemy falls and you in the snow and you running around with one shoe and you see, oh man, this dude just fell. Hey, he ain't gonna need them boots. I'm putting them boots on. Now, he ain't gonna need them rations. Let me get them beans. I mean, let me get that ammo. It's war going on. I'm in survival mode. What's the first law of nature? Self-preservation. Now, I mean, so I'm not trying to judge. Now, I mean, but at the same time, I don't want y'all to be spooky about it either. Don't think that it's an argument between Abraham Lincoln and the good blacks fighting against the racist whites down south. Now, I mean, white people think it's like, listen, imagine somebody saying having pets is wrong. Like Peter saying, you know, wearing fur coats is wrong. They like, and you be like, you're a descendant of those that wore leather shoes to work at the train station and made all that money. And now, I mean, you got privileges from that. True. But white people is, you know, the white Southerns is so trying to be so politically correct, they scared to speak their heart. They like, listen, I don't like blacks. White folks, don't be afraid to say that. It's a lot of black people that don't like y'all white folks. That don't mean that they are racist or racism in a negative sense. They like, I'm not trying to kill y'all. It's like, I just prefer to be amongst my own. I love my own. Ain't nothing wrong with white birds liking white birds. I wouldn't be considered racist if ducks want to marry ducks and don't care about geese and swine. I mean, it's not racist if a lion don't want to sleep with the tiger, but they can and produce a tiger line. It happens. I mean, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out there. Now, I mean, but I want y'all to understand, beware the technology of everything being cut and dry. Everything operates in 360 degrees. Peace and blessings, family. I love you and I love the struggle. Your brother, Ali. Peace.